Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Nonprofit Help Desk. Usually I do an intro and then hand over speaking to some other brilliant voice, but today you get me the whole time, and I am thrilled to be here and to present for our whole time today. My name is Amy Fiore. I am the director of the Nonprofit Help Desk. I am also a nonprofit consultant and specialist focused on strategic plan, nonprofit operations, fundraising. I have worked in-house. I've worked as a consultant with a lot of different kinds of organizations, training staff, training boards. That's why I love this work as a nonprofit, as part of the Nonprofit Help Desk. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today. Before we get into our topic, and it's one that I'm excited about, I want to tell you a little bit about the Nonprofit Help Desk. If you are brand new here, welcome. If you've been with us for a while, welcome back. We are just getting to the nearly end of our season this year. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th, and we are coming to the end of our season. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But if you are brand new to us, we are the Nonprofit Help Desk, which is a program of the JCC of Greater Coney Island. And we truly are here to help you. There is no membership fee. We do not charge for our services ever. We are just here. We are funded by New York City government and private funders in order to make running a nonprofit easier for all of you. I'm gonna see Nonprofit Help Desk is requesting to record to their computer. Works for me. All right, what we do with the Nonprofit Help Desk is free live workshops like you are seeing here. And every one of our workshops, before you ask in the chat, they're going to ask anyway, but you all know we are recording this workshop. We post every one of our workshops onto our archive. I'll show you an example of that in a moment. So you always have access to everything. It continues to be free. Everything that we present is always available to you. We have an active LinkedIn community, and we are growing our Facebook community. So look for us on whichever of those pages, those sites that you use regularly. We want conversations to be going. Feel free to share questions there. Feel free to pay attention to what we're doing. We post a lot of our archive stuff there as well. And then last but most certainly not least is we offer free one-on-one expert support to you. All you have to do is apply to it. So, our workshops. This is a smattering of actually some of our archived workshops that we have made available. We've just opened up a YouTube page as well, so you can see them there. You can find them on our website, which has just been put into the chat, which is nphd.org. Any topic, sometimes just to do a control find if you want to look for a topic, you can find out all of the information. We share the slides there as well. And as I mentioned, we are also a help desk. What that means is if we cover a topic, like for example, a week or so ago, we covered graphic design, the goods and bads, the do's and don'ts for graphic design. If you, for example, wanted to talk to our facilitator of that day and say, hey, Kirsten, I want to know if my design is working. I want your feedback. I want you to help me edit this to make it better. All you have to do is visit us at nphd.org. On the home page, there is a button that says request expert support. Then you fill out a form. But one thing we're going to ask you to do is be very, very specific. We have a number of experts that focus on different things. And so what we want to know is what exactly your need is so that we can pair you with the right person. If you come to us with a broad question, you're probably going to be sent back to a video. In fact, you may be sent back to this video to say, this is an overview. We want to have some common language so that we can spend our limited time and funding to be able to help you with something specific rather than talk in broad strokes. So please pay attention to the help desk. We're so glad to have you here. We are so glad to be able to help, and we want to be able to keep on doing that. All right, into our topic today. You started a nonprofit organization. Now what? That's where we are. I'm going to let you know that the chat is open and I am going to be going back into the chat. I want to be able to answer your questions so that we make sure that this time is valuable to you. We're going to also leave a lot of time at the end for questions for your organizations, broad questions about running a nonprofit organization. So you have a question, you have a thought, feel free to keep that chat going. All right, let's get started. So I don't usually do this, but I'm going to start this session with apologies and a warning, because this session is going to start with a fair amount of tough love and negativity that truly you don't deserve. Undoubtedly, you are here because you started your organization to make your corner of the world a better place. You are clearly a caring person who has something to give. That's not just admirable, it's awe-inspiring that you want to commit your time, your money, your resources to a mission that you feel in your heart. And I want to start by saying that I absolutely respect you from the bottom of my heart. I applaud you. And as the director of the Nonprofit Help Desk, I hear from a lot of you. Unfortunately, despite truly worthy intentions, what I hear from the collective of individuals who have started or want to start a nonprofit organization is actually deeply concerning. It was so concerning that I had a session that I intended to present in this time slot and actually decided to scrap it to be able to explore this topic of now what, because this seems to be what I'm hearing loudest of the questions of, so I started this nonprofit thing. How do I figure it out? What comes up? So first and foremost, you should know that you are not alone. I follow many nonprofit groups through LinkedIn and Facebook, and I'm going to just show you a smattering of what I saw. I pulled this about a month or two ago. In about a week's time, these were the posts that I saw while I was putting this session together, and the kinds of stuff that started to catch my attention as both valid and also concerning. So let me give you a sense of that. All of them are focused on, I started a nonprofit organization, and now I'm wondering, how do I get funding for this organization? What is there anyone else that is doing the same thing as me? Are there grants? Where do I go about finding a grant? How do I figure out who should follow my nonprofit organization? This was 1 week's time. And it's not just this 1 week. I didn't pick a magical week. This is every week. Countless people throwing themselves into starting a nonprofit organization. And what it seems like is many of them are doing it without a plan, like it is easy or casual. And starting a nonprofit organization isn't easy or casual at all. And so I hope that you will stick with me through this beginning part of negativity, because I promise we're going to get back to optimism and opportunity. But in my role running the help desk, I just feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't start with some tough realities, because there seems to be an astonishing amount of misinformation and mistakes and confusion about our sector that is leading a lot of really good people, like all of you, all 43 of you that are here right now. It is leading you astray. So let's start by clarifying what nonprofits actually are and aren't, define how they operate, and manage your expectations in order to offer you ways to continue your efforts more thoroughly, more efficiently, and more effectively. So we're going to focus on some misnomers, some myths, and some common mistakes that I am hearing and seeing time and again when it comes to starting and the early stages of running or even thinking about starting a nonprofit organization. So, number one, a nonprofit is owned by its founder. A lot of times we'll see posts, we'll have people come to us and say, my nonprofit, I own my nonprofit. As the owner of my nonprofit, I want to do this or that. This is a mistake. A nonprofit organization is not owned by anyone. A nonprofit organization is a business entity that falls under tax code 501(c)(3. And that designates that it is governed by a volunteer board of directors who have ultimate budget approval and fiduciary responsibility. So, other way of saying that is your nonprofit exists for the greater good and only for the greater good. It doesn't exist for you, it exists for your community. And your board serves as representatives of that population, and it is their responsibility to make decisions in the interest of your organization. Now, you can serve on your board. When you start your organization, it's your responsibility to find a board and sometimes to train a board and to all get onto the same page. But legally, you are not the owner of your organization. Your organization is not owned, but it is run by your board of directors. Nonprofit means no profit. This is a misnomer, and I think you guys probably already figured this one out. Nonprofit status is a tax designation that means that any net profit the organization makes, which is gross revenue minus all board approved expenses, including salary, must be reinvested back into serving the mission rather than paying out to shareholders. So a corporation, if it has a $1 million net profit at the end of the year, can pay a percentage of that out to shareholders. A nonprofit organization cannot pay its board of directors. There is no over the from the top funding that then goes back. Now you can approve a salary, your board can approve a salary, everyone can get paid. In fact, the board can say, we did really well this year, everyone can get a bonus, but you don't take that net sum and each take a percentage simply because we did really well and therefore we earned this in some way. And it's a minor distinction, but it is a very, very important distinction that the government makes in terms of what being a nonprofit means. So, in other words, you can absolutely make a profit and pay yourself, and you can pay a staff, providing your board approves those expenditures, and this is a big and, your organization can afford to pay yourself and your staff. Next, a nonprofit organization can't make money. And of course, similarly, this is a myth. A nonprofit is a business. If your organization does not need to make any money to exist, then it's a club or a hobby, and those are wonderful things. And if you can sustain your organization long term without any financial considerations of any kind, you can comfortably step off of this webinar. Truly, this webinar ultimately, just like anything else in the world, ends up being about money, right? Because if you need money for your organization to exist in any way, or you need money personally in order to create the space to continue running this organization in some way, you need a business plan to be able to obtain it for your organization. It doesn't need to be a complicated business plan. It doesn't need to be fancy. You can probably even use ChatGPT to help you with it. But you do need a business plan that identifies viable sources of revenue that you can I lost my notes, that you can confidently assume that you can earn. Now, for your organization, for any organization, the revenue that is the easiest to earn is revenue that you get by charging for programming or entry fees, which again, you can make money. You are absolutely allowed to do, providing your board approves it and your constituents can afford to pay for your services, even if that amount is low. In fact, funders don't always have an issue with you charging for services. It is okay to charge for services for your organization. Again, providing your constituents can afford it and your board approves it. If you think about this in terms of private schools, theaters, animal shelters. Many other nonprofit organization types charge a reasonable fee for services. Now, maybe you can too, and maybe you can't. You may be hearing this and saying that's you're missing the point, Amy. This is not why I started my organization. No one in my community can afford it. That's fine, and I respect that, and I imagine that that is true for many of you. But it is also important to make sure that you are not assuming that funding will definitely come from somewhere else. Your organization needs a viable source of revenue in order to exist. We'll talk a bunch more about that. Nonprofits are funded by grants. It is a mistake to assume, did I move to the next one? That grants will be made to you. Now, I know you're all going, but no. I know grants exist, and they do. Yes, grants exist to fund charitable purposes. And yes, many nonprofit organizations receive grants and count on them for their successful operations. But far fewer organizations exist only on grants. And the organizations that do exist only on grants are generally well established before the very first grant comes in. They are then entirely beholden to the desires and interests of the grant maker. They are always at a risk of non-renewal, and they are subject to extensive and complicated reporting and compliance practices in order to keep the grants. If any of you have joined us at the help desk for any of the webinars, the many webinars we give on city funding, you can already attest to how complicated those application and reporting processes are. So yes, grants exist. They are incredibly competitive and getting more competitive, and they are incredibly difficult to maintain, not to mention that they are looking for you to be established. And one of the things that they are going to ask you is to present a budget, because no grantor wants to be your only funder. They do not want to be solely responsible for your organization. So once again, you need a viable plan to be able to run your organization. Now, on rare occasions, brand new nonprofits receive a grant right off the bat, but they are truly the exception, and those grants are rarely renewable. And if they are renewable and that you get the exception, they are usually not enough to be sustainable long term. We're talking $1,000 to $5,000, which may be an absolute fortune for your organization, but it's not enough for you to pay yourself and manage your programming, or for you to pay yourself and other people. Out of all the concerning things I see, the idea that grants will just appear is number one. Unfortunately, this isn't Field of Dreams. There is no wealthy foundation that is just waiting for your organization to exist so that they can fund you. There is too much competition out there. It simply doesn't work this way. So you might be thinking, right, that's right. I need to go get that nonprofit paperwork, and that's going to change the whole thing. And so you might imagine that I am going to put up another M here. The idea that the 501c3 gets you grants. To quote a very smart anonymous person whose post I recently stole from one of those nonprofit Facebook groups, the 501c3 is not a ticket to funding. It is merely a permission slip. The fact is, and we all forget this because we hear a lot about, I need to go get my 501c3. I don't really know what that means, but I know I need to get it. You don't really need it in order to raise money. If you have donors who don't care about a tax write-off, and unless they're giving you a giant gift, unless they're giving you a significant portion of their own salary a year, they typically don't. They're giving you $50, $100. They don't necessarily need to know. They don't necessarily need the tax write-off. It's negligible to them. Then you can go ahead and raise dollars like they do on GoFundMe. You may just have to pay taxes on that revenue if you raise more than a certain threshold, but that amount that you're going to pay on taxes is probably less than legal fees and your time that it takes to go and do your tax filing. So another way to think about it is you really only need your 501c3 if you have a funding source that is requiring it. So I want to make sure that I'm being clear here. I'm not saying that you should not be a 501c3. The goal is to eventually have a funding source that says, we actually would consider you for a grant if you have your 501c3. If you are hearing that, now I'm not saying you're reading that on their website, but if you are in a conversation with the funder that says, we would like for you to apply for funding, but you need to either be under a fiscal sponsor or a 501c3, that's when you go and do the paperwork. But if the thought is, I'm going to go spend months and money and even come to the help desk because we help with that to do that so that I will receive funding, I want to make sure that that's a myth, that having the 501c3 doesn't really open any doors. Rather, it's just a permission slip to even approach the door. I said something about a fiscal sponsor. Maybe you've heard of that. And so the next one is, I will support my organization with a fiscal sponsor. I don't need grants, right? And of course, this is a misnomer. A fiscal sponsor does not bring in any money. A fiscal sponsor's job is to first verify your mission-based services and your compliance, and then accept charitable donations on your behalf, but then they keep an administrative fee for themselves. So think of them as a very friendly neighborhood bank or credit union. They may provide a great resource if you've identified a funding source. Let's say you have spoken to a funder that says, yes, we want you to apply for your funding. Do you have your 501c3? And they're like, but we want a proposal next week. You're not going to get your 501c3 that quickly. US government doesn't work that quickly ever. So you may then say, I don't, but I have a fiscal sponsor who has a 501c3. That can accelerate the process. They may even provide ideas and advice, but most of the time, a fiscal sponsor doesn't really help you with raising money beyond an introduction or some resources. So it brings me to the last of my myths, misnomers, and mistakes. My community needs my nonprofit. And on that, my M is actually maybe. You are absolutely correct that great need exists. That is not in question. You are also correct that we need more people like you, wherever you are dialing into this webinar right now, to address very real problems. And it is entirely possible, even likely, that your community needs you, and specifically the programs that you have in mind to help them. You know your community better than other organizations. You are the right person to do it. But until you have metrics that show meaningful outcomes, you don't actually know if your community needs your organization more than other services that are already available to them, or if you have the ability to sustain your programs financially, because it may be that they need you more than other programs, that your programs are better, but if you don't have the financial stability to be there for the long haul, they may be better off with a provider that provides less of a service, but has the financial stability to be around for the long haul, because that's really what their need is. Sadly, just like any other kind of business, you need to prove you are successful before you can expect funding to help you grow. So I suspect that a lot of that was hard to hear, that it made you feel defensive. Maybe it made some of you feel like you want to prove me wrong. And I say, good, please do. I invite you to challenge me and put your questions in the chat so we can talk through what you are experiencing. And I'm, as I said, going to leave room for a long Q&A. So you can go ahead and pop them in the chat while I start outlining the next piece of this, what you can do today and should be doing tomorrow to help ensure that you have a long future. So feel free, chat is open. And now we get to the now what. Just start doing the work. Do you want to clean up a community garden? Do you want to run a rec program for teenagers? Do you want to put on a show for senior citizens? Just do it. Don't start with the official mission statement being perfect, or establishing the perfect board of directors, or writing the perfect business plan, or dealing with your tax paperwork. Start doing the thing and learn how to do it well. And that's the thing that we don't see nearly enough. Learn how hard it is to find a space, or how easy it is to get in kind donations. Make mistakes, make notes, measure literally everything that you are doing. How many people participated? Put their names and emails into a spreadsheet. How did they hear about it? Make a tally so that you know what promotional methods are working. Did you have enough supplies? Create a wish list of what you need more of. Did your participants find it meaningful? Create an anonymous survey. What would they recommend you do better? Ask that question in the survey and be willing to read it and be willing to absorb that feedback with open ears and an open heart. Sometimes that means take a second, put it away, reread it, take the hard feedback later on. Take all of it in, develop a strategy based on everything you learned during your first go round, and then do it again and be a little bit better next time before you do any of the other things that we were talking about, your 501c3, your business plan, et cetera, et cetera. Just start doing the thing. Thank you, Catherine H. Google Ad Grants may be the only exception. You do need a 501c3 and a good website to get it. Yes, I agree with you. There are definitely exceptions. There are things that you need your 501c3, and my suggestion is you don't need a website or your Google grant just yet. Start doing the work. Just start small. Start reaching out to the people that you know. If you have it and you have the time, great. But Google Grants are actually only so helpful. They are pretty limited in their funding. They're wonderful once you've started to establish yourself. You have to establish yourself first for those to work too. Well, the nonprofit already started, it's been stated. Now what? I'm here. And and thank you, Kappa, for your question. Whether you are started or not, whether you have put in your paperwork or not, the suggestion I am making is don't be chasing down the funding. Don't be figuring out yet all of the administrative pieces about how do I do it right before I start, because I talk to many of you that are saying, okay, but I need the perfect board and I need that grant in order to do the thing that I want to do. And my suggestion is you don't need any of that. Just start doing the work. Just start at whatever capacity you can. Just start doing the work. Clean up the garden. Start the after school program in a park where you don't need to pay for space. Whatever that means to you, whatever your mission is, right? Just start doing the work. Next, do your research. Figure out everyone who is already doing exactly what you are doing. Figure out how many people are they serving a year. Look at what they are doing to promote it. Are they using Google Ads? Are they sending e-blasts? Do they have posters around the community? What are they doing? How do they fund their program? What would you do better? And some of you may be saying, I don't know how would I know how they fund their program? Every nonprofit organization over $1 million in budget is required to submit a Form 990, which has to show where their funding comes from. It has to show very detailed information about their budget. It even has to show how much they pay in salary. All of this information, you use things like all of the grant, Charity Navigator, those kinds of places. Look up those organizations. Scour them from top to bottom so that you can start to figure out what would you do better. What are they doing really well that you might be able to learn from them? You should know who your peers are and your competitors are. You should go to their website and read it cover to cover. You should be following their blog. You should get on their mailing list and read every single e-blast that they send. You can then start to determine what their best practices are so that you can emulate them and identify what you might see as their errors so that you can make a plan to do things differently. If you were to start any other kind of business, that would be the first thing that you would do is a landscape analysis of how many other pizza places are on this block. What makes mine different? How are they advertising? What is their pricing? And nonprofits are a business. You do need to know what your competitors are doing so that you can identify where you fit uniquely into this niche. And then you might think that I'm going to say, now crush the competition. And I actually say the opposite. Don't beat them. Don't even try. Join them. Figure out everyone in your area who is doing something similar to what you're already doing. Get to know them too. Just reach out, volunteer for them. Ask them the same questions that you're asking yourself in order to determine what you can learn from them. When you start doing that, you get one step closer to having a successful organization. And let's say there is no one doing exactly what you aim to do, and you truly have a unique way to serve your community. That's wonderful. That's what you're looking for. You want to know that you are doing something a little bit different in order to confirm that your community actually needs you. You want to figure out then who is serving your community in different ways. Is there a rec center that doesn't have your particular type of art classes, but already has funding and strong ties to the public? Is there a pet shelter that doesn't offer therapy dog training, and that's specifically what you want to work on? Is there a shelter for the unhoused that doesn't offer childcare, and that's what you want to be able to provide to your community? Talk to them. Offer to provide your program under their umbrella, even ask to be paid for it. Say, hey, unhoused shelter, I have been wanting to provide services, childcare services for the unhoused in this community. It doesn't look like you have a robust program, or it looks like you have a limited program. Can I help provide that for you? Is there funding for it? Would you pay me to do this under your umbrella? Is there a grant share? Do you have grant funding that says that you are promising that you do it, and that you, bigger nonprofit organization, have run into capacity issues that I might be able to help take on for you? From working with other organizations, by not beating them but joining them, you are now doing your accelerated internship that you would do if you were going to be starting to go into a standard commercial business for yourself. That gets you one step closer to having a successful organization that is far more beneficial for your time and effort than spending the time to get your 501c3 or applying for grants that you're not eligible for yet. Let's see. The work has already been started under a nonprofit. How would you advise much smaller nonprofits which have budgets under 25,000? Thank you, Kappa. I appreciate your question, and this is everything that I would advise to smaller nonprofits which have budgets under 25,000. This is exactly where I think you need to be. That if you're at a budget that isn't at the point where you are able to pay a salary, right? And you sort of even maybe a little bit of part-time salary in there, but under 25,000, you're not paying anyone, able to pay anyone a livable wage. This is everything that I am advising. This is not necessarily about only the $3,000 organizations. I advise this unless you are in this workshop and you are already hovering around $100,000, because that's when you start to be really eligible for meaningful grants. I still stick with all of the recommendations that I'm making today, and I appreciate the question. At this point, you have to ask yourself the hard questions. Once you're doing the work and know what the challenges are and know what the rewards are, once you've been doing the research and working with other organizations and paying attention to what your peers and your competitors are doing in the marketplace, it's time to ask, does starting my organization compete with area nonprofits and pull extremely limited resources? Now, this is a brutal question, and I acknowledge that it is a brutal question. But if you are truly in competition, and there is an organization that's established, and let's say you do really well, there is a chance that you will then put them out of business. And if you do that and you can't serve the capacity that they are serving, or let's say you're not putting them out of business, but you're there, your local funder is going to take the $100,000 that they're giving every year to that organization. And now, well, we have a new guy on the block who's doing something that's relatively similar. I'm going to give them 20,000, and you're taking 20% of the funding from another organization. Are you really serving your community? Are you serving a community need? Is that what your community actually needs? Are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it for your community? Because again, we go back to the first of my M's. Who is the owner of a nonprofit? Why are we doing this? We are doing this broadly, right? This running nonprofit organizations to make the world a better place. And so these hard questions, these are the only correct answers if you are really starting a nonprofit that is going to be successful and doing it for the right reasons. Are you in competition? The answer should be no. Does your community actually need this? Are you actually hearing and seeing and have the evidence that your community needs what it is that you are serving? It's serving their needs. The answer needs to be yes. And it has to be for them. It has to be because without what you are providing, the community is less healthy, safe, beneficial in some way. Otherwise, unfortunately, and it's a broken system. Let's be very, very clear. It is absolutely a broken system. But if you are starting an organization that is successful, there's only limited funding. You will be pulling resources from somewhere else. And so you want to make sure that it's worth it to pull resources from somewhere else. All right, so let's talk about funding. You've done all this, you need to start figuring out where money comes from. And as you know, just like anything else, everything that we're talking about is related to money. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to start to build a budget to determine best and worst case scenarios of the money you need to operate on your own, to pay yourself, to scale, whatever your goal is. What you want to do is you want to give your very best guess. And now that's going to be an educated guess because you've done the work, right? To know how much it's going to cost to run your organization on an annual basis. You now should have real clarity on those numbers. And if you don't, it's time to go back, continue doing your research. How much is it going to cost realistically, best and worst case scenario, for me to run this program that I want to run? You can assume that you maybe will get some space that is that is lent to you, that is in kind. Maybe not, right? So you have to do your best and your worst case scenario is I'm also going to have to rent space, right? Best case scenario is you'll find a park where you can operate for free. Those are some examples. So once you have those numbers, and then you can start to determine where it could possibly come from. The annual Giving USA report comes out this month, and this is a national report that surveys the thousands and thousands and thousands of organizations around the U.S. to understand where giving comes from. And year after year, we see very few surprises on the Giving USA report. Year after year, sometimes 68%, sometimes 72%, but roughly 70% of donations come from individuals. I'm going to say that one more time. 70% of donations come from individuals. So while we hear lots of questions about grants, right? So many questions about grants. The truth is, grants are 30% of giving in the US. That's not true. Grants are about hover between 20 and 28% of giving for the US, because there's also a huge percentage that comes from government and a huge percent that comes from in kind, right? So I'm sorry, government and corporations and in kind grants are part of that roughly 20 to 25%. So to fund your organization, start with the people who are already familiar with your work. Build upon the email lists that you already established. Develop active social media pages. Then now set up a website. And we're in it now, right? We are several years into the work that you are doing. Now is when who Catherine, now is when you start to focus on your Google ads and your website. Um, you want to do all of those things in the effort of educating people about your mission and gaining their attention so that you can eventually ask them to help as volunteers, as board members, and as donors. The rule of thumb is that you need to absorb information. Someone needs to absorb information about your organization about 7 times before they are likely to give. It used to be the conventional wisdom was you needed to thank someone 7 times before you asked them to give again. I don't think that that is, I think that that is stated incorrectly. We don't really need to thank someone 7 times for being involved because thanking someone who wants to be thanked that many times for something. But you want 7 touch points. You want to contact someone 7 different times to know news, updates, in in one way or another find out what's going on with your organization before they're really going to even think about starting to pay attention to what it is that you're doing. That usually takes 6 months to a year. So start building and maintaining relationships from day one. It's super easy to set up an Instagram, a TikTok, a Facebook page, a Twitter feed. Start collecting people, start posting, start talking, start collecting information and posts about what it is you're doing because you're going to need to start talking to your constituency so that you can start to figure out which of those individuals might give to you at some point. And yes, foundation and government grants are options to explore, but remember that every contribution, and if you've heard me speak ever before, you will always hear me repeat this. It comes up in every workshop that I give. I say it to every single client. Remember that every contribution from a $5 donation to a $100,000 grant is decided on by at least one person. The easiest money to get is the one from someone spending their own cash, who is handing you a dollar, who is writing you a check, who is opening up their own Venmo. Anyone giving a larger gift most likely is going to run the idea past at least one person before they decide to give. Sometimes that's a spouse or a partner. Sometimes that's a boss. Sometimes that's a full committee of people that is looking at grant proposals. But anyone who is giving a larger gift will run the idea past at least one more person before deciding to give. So you need to be able to count on them to explain the value of what you are doing without you there. So, no matter what you want your funding model to be, you need to get good at telling your story and asking for help. And I'm talking about of everyone you know, of everyone you meet. And this takes a lot of practice. It will be the primary part of your job for the life of your organization, telling your story and asking for help. Even when you are financially stable enough to hire a fundraiser, you, as the founder of your organization, or you, as the central person of your organization, are going to always have to be good at telling your story and asking for help. When you hire a fundraiser, their job is to tee you up to continue telling your story. They ultimately won't be the fundraiser for you because anyone who wants to give money is going to want to talk to you. You also need to get really, really good at listening. Every funder has a mission too. Everyone who's going to give you money has in their own head the things that they care about and the things that they prioritize and give money to. If they are a grant maker, they make that very clear. If they are an individual, they actually usually make it pretty clear too. While there are certainly occasional exceptions, most funders will not change that priority for you, no matter how worthy your cause is or compelling your pitch. And I think if you all think about it, you care about certain things, right? You give donations to certain types of charities. You give donations because certain people ask you to do it. And so, what you want to do as a nonprofit is invest your time in finding people and dollars that are already aligned with your mission rather than trying to change anybody else's mind. It's a fool's errand to try to change someone's mind and convince them that you are worthy of their dollars. Then make sure that they can clearly learn who you are, what you do, why they should care, how you are different and more efficient and more trustworthy and more essential in only a few sentences. You have to get good at development. And I want to flag that word. Development is the word that we in nonprofit use for fundraising. And there's a reason for it. It's not just because nobody wants the title development, because if I call saying I'm sorry, fundraising, if I call and say I am the director of fundraising, no one would take my phone calls. The reason why we call it development is it's about developing relationships. It is about developing knowledge about our mission. It is about developing language to be able to share our mission with others in the hopes of getting them to buy in some way that is meaningful. Getting good at development, you will be really, truly on your path for success. So, if you haven't yet, now, after everything I've described, which again could be easily 2 or 3 years down the road, you are ready to develop your board and show the value and see the value of a 501c3. And we have plenty of resources for that. It's important to remember that no one person or entity is going to solve any of this for you. There are roughly 2 million registered nonprofit organizations in the US. There are approximately 46,500 registered nonprofit organizations in New York City alone. Across the New York broader metro area, including surrounding parts of New York and New Jersey, that number swells to over 130,000 organizations. Many, many of those organizations are in the exact same boat as you. So it is deeply unrealistic to assume that anyone will solve your challenges other than you. But it also means that there are tons of resources out there. Use them. Start with professional associations. There are associations specifically for fundraising. Look into the Association of Fundraising Professionals for New York. Their stuff is expensive to go to their conference, but they offer scholarships for it. Their workshops are way cheaper. If you get on their email list, you usually can get access to really good fundraising resources and grant opportunities just by following them. I see the questions coming in. I'm going to come back to them in just a few minutes. Look at social media groups. As I said, I'm following a bunch on LinkedIn and Facebook. Take all of the advice you get with a grain of salt because you're gonna get a smattering of different things. And yes, the internet is the Wild West, so people aren't always nice, but there is some good stuff to glean from those social media pages, and you can get good advice. Look for pro bono advisors. We talk a lot about wanting our boards to join the board or to give money. Look for people who say, yeah, I don't really want to join your board, but I'm willing to give you then ask them for an hour of advice or ask them who they know who might be able to provide some advice. And think about that in terms of strategic board placement. And then you have us, and there are lots of organizations like that, like us. We're the nonprofit help desk. And this is not a sales pitch at all, especially because we don't make any money from you guys joining us, right? We're thrilled to have you. No membership fee. You can get help from us, but there are plenty of resources like us. Get on every single one of those email lists so that you can see what workshops are coming up. Get more help because you have the opportunity to. I'm going to jump to questions so I can see this chat is going. Thank you all. Hi, Amy. We have started and sustained, but are still in the $50,000 budget. Now we're looking at how to go back and look at things we should have done at the beginning, or we could have done better. Building a strong board was definitely a weak point for us then and now. Also, how to fund our growth now. Looking to gather and build data we didn't gather. Excellent. You are very welcome. Thank you for those takeaway. I didn't mean to read something aloud to compliment myself, but Amy, great stuff. I'm going to comment on that, Amy. We often feel like we need to ask someone to join our board. And I just sort of touched on this. An organization I'm working very closely with, we finally stopped doing that. And we've just asked someone if we can just call them an advisor. And we have this list of advisors on our website. And all we have asked them for permission to do is call them when we have a question. Hey, can you lend us your name? And then if we have a question on whatever their topic, their area of expertise is, can you be an advisor to us? Can I bother you? So that I don't have to feel guilty or annoyed later to be like, hey, excuse me, can I borrow your time? Get people to just ask them to be your advisor. It's definitely a very different ask than asking someone to join your board. They also then may fall in love with you and they may actually want to join your board later on. Again, those 7 touch points, right? All of that is really cultivation, and this is a great way to do it. I'm looking to develop a community event education center to teach basic life skills. It's a 3 to 5 year plan. Thank you, Lloyd. Everything that we're talking about here, instead of initially trying to become a center, you want to just start doing some community events and start teaching some basic life skills. See if you can set those up, or more importantly, see who will take you on. Is there a community center near you that does not have this type of programming? Make a phone call to them. Say, hey, I'm willing to offer this. And if you make money on it, then we make money on it. If you don't, I don't. And that's a better place to start than to try to do it from scratch all by yourself. And thank you, Toby. I appreciate you. All right. Um, Stay focused, grow slowly. Once you've worked your way through all of this, many of you will feel strongly compelled to grow with the need. You will start to identify what the needs are, and the needs are great. We are in a really, really broken time and unfortunately a pretty broken society right now. But unfortunately, the need is likely to continue in your community for the foreseeable future, probably for the life of your organization. And as hard as it is, you cannot address it all, despite your wanting to. You can choose to be frustrated by that and burn out and burn through whatever funds you get really quickly, or you can be thinking about sustainability for the long term. Healthy organizations are constantly balancing community need with their own personal and organizational capacity to serve and the available funding that they have as they try to grow. Have your board hold you accountable to that balance. I know the need is there. I know you feel it. We feel it too. It's okay to have, it's great instead to have a resource of services that when you feel like your organization can't grow at the capacity that your constituency needs, it's okay to send them somewhere else. It's okay to say, I only can do this many programs this year. I know you need more programming. I actually didn't beat them. I joined them. Here are some other organizations that I can tell you about that can serve your needs for the interim until we replenish our funding or we establish an ability to help you more year round. Saw this post and it made me really, really happy. 4Print accidentally sent me bags that I had my web address all wrong. We had it done and approved and corrections. I needed the bags for a donation this weekend, so I didn't fret. I just purchased the incorrect domain and pointed it to my website and kept it moving. This was problem solving that cost them probably $29. I love this post because it is a great manifestation of what this all really feels like. When I work with an organization, a big organization about strategic planning, we talk a lot about how you never feel like you will hit a finish line. You don't feel success when you run a business. You don't ever sort of you have moments, but you never feel like you achieve the goals because you've already developed 25 more goals by the time you achieve the first ones. I honestly, and I don't love writing grant reports, but I honestly find I discover it most when I'm actually writing a grant report, when I sort of pitch something, 2.5 years prior, we get the grant, and only 2 years later, when I write the report, that I go, huh, we actually accomplished all the things that we said we were going to. Because it doesn't feel that way in the real time, right? It it's hard running a nonprofit business because the need never goes away. Um, be flexible, delegate, as much as possible. Make friends, be patient, try things, let others in, be kind to yourself, fail, pick yourself back up, and try it again. I started this way and I want to end this way, and then we'll get to questions. You started your organization to make your corner of the world a better place, which means that you are a caring person with something to give. And that's not just admirable, it's awe-inspiring that you want to commit your time, your money, and your resources to your mission. I respect you and I applaud you. And I am here at the help desk to wish you the best of luck and to continue serving you and helping you as much as we can. And for any of you who've been one on one with me, you know a lot of it is tough love. A lot of it is, I'm going to hold you to this. I'm going to make you go watch another video because I have limited funding too. And I can't give you an hour that I can give to somebody else if you can then go and watch this video um, to get a little bit of common language, right? But we're here for you. We are, I believe in you. And I am so glad that I have as many of you as you registered for this session today. And I hope to stay in touch with all of you. All right. Chat is open for questions. I'm going to jump to this screen so that you can scan, and because we also survey, we're constantly collecting feedback. Sometimes it's hard to hear, sometimes it's delightful to hear, but we're constantly collecting feedback too. So please do fill out that survey. There's a question on that survey of what other topics do you want? I'm about to go into planning mode. I want to know what else you need from the help desk. So make sure you think about that before you fill out our survey as well. And the chat is open if anyone has any further questions. Any questions in there? All right. By my watch, we are 1 minute from the top of the hour. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you soon.